still extremely humid out there at the present time. Just to say that this could possibly be the final virtual format Southend Business Partnership briefing. I mean, we will review the situation, but we are planning our next briefing to be at the Boundary Marquee at Garrans Park on the 16th of September, which of course has the caveat of how things are with COVID restrictions. But if they remain favourable, then we will be planning to have a face-to-face meeting, which is sort of an outdoor-indoor with a marquee. But that's very much no doubt down to how we and others, shall we say, conduct ourselves in the intervening period, with the variants having the ability, you know, to come back and smack us in the face, so to speak. So hopefully we may be moving back to some face-to-face stuff. But then I'll then encourage everybody, please build in your travelling time, because we probably have got used to operating on meetings without having to travel much. I think also I would like to mention today that coincidentally today is Clean Air Day. Some of you may know that. And you will be seeing schools, hospitals, workplaces, and communities across the UK running activities and taking action to inspire people to take simple steps to protect their health, their family's health and children's health from air pollution. And I think very much as we return, shall we say, progressively to some normality in our lives, we must take the opportunity, I think, to create healthy environment for our children, and where they can learn and play safely. So perhaps maybe this is a once in a lifetime chance for a change, but let's use it. Just to mention that. However, today's event is very much about providing a circuit breaker of positivity and potential opportunity, as we have in our recent previous meetings. Very much delighted to see you joining us today. I think we're now up to about 40 of the 80 we're expecting, and to hopefully see how the opportunities created by these projects and initiatives you'll be hearing about can help to support your business through supply chain opportunities, increased construction investment and employment opportunities. The theme is about building for the future. I've chosen those words in the broadest context, and you know, this very much relates to Southend, as it does indeed to South Essex, as very much the whole of South Essex is still very much, I feel, a place for opportunity and also for optimism. And with this in mind, we have the following presentations. The first one will be about usage classes in planning and the local plan. We'll then have on subject of modular building and better Queensway, then be on the airport business park, and then finally but not least, the Thames Estuary Growth Board. We'll be sharing with you PowerPoint presentations, so I hope you have shall I say, a big enough screen to be able to see this, but we will be doing a recording as normal, and that will be made available by the Business-on-Sea webpage. So if you want to revisit some of this, then you can do so via that link, and please encourage others to access it as well. Just on the normal admin announcements, please. And normally at meetings you say put your phone on mute, but if you could also do so for this Microsoft Teams link. And also we're looking to raise questions via the chat facility as well. There will be an omnibus Q&A, but that will probably be picking up on questions that are asked by chat, which have yet to be addressed. Okay, some of them will be responded to, your questions in chat during the presentations, and Haida and Susan will assist on that with me. Just to say, the first presentation, which is from the Southend Council, when we get there, will need questions being addressed during the meeting, okay, by chat, because both presenters, Mark and Kevin, will have to move on to another meeting. So just to flag that one up. As is customary, I just want to say a few words, update on things since we last met. The first two are particularly relating to Southend Council. Firstly, I think many of you will have picked up that Ali Griffin CEO of Southend Council, will be shortly moving on, I think in July actually, onto a new role. And I feel I need to take the opportunity to offer our sincere and big thanks for leading, firstly, on creating a bold and challenging ambitions for Southend 2050. But of course, little do we know that there would be significant and unprecedented challenges arising from COVID-19. And I know that Ali would be the first to say it's been a team effort. But, you know, a big thank you to Ali in leading her team and wishing her well as Chief Executive of the London Councils, which I understand is a cross-party organisation which represents 32 London boroughs and the City of London Corporation. So as I say, I think she's taking her role up in July, and unless she is online unknowingly to me, speak now or I'll move on. No, okay. Again, relating to the council, been the recent local elections, as you know, and this resulted in the continuation of a coalition. And I was pleased recently to have had the opportunity to meet with Councillor Ian Gilbert, who remains leader of the council, and being able to discuss with him local issues and opportunities for the town on behalf of Southend Business Partnership. I was especially pleased to hear that he will be the link into Southend Business Partnership for the council from the member side. Obviously, we have very good links from officers of the council as well. And in regard to focuses of the Southend Business Partnership Executive, we intend very much to remain focused on supporting and rebooting, re-energising the town centre and indeed other locations across our town, including the Kersal site, on which it is vital to secure what I think is a sustainable future, whether that be via the current owners or not. Equally, it is important, have to say, that we secure a recovery for our very important hospitality and airport aviation sectors, which are obviously continuing to struggle due to the current restrictions affecting their sectors. Just also to mention finally that there are bids which we've been involved in Southend Business Partnership Executive in supporting under the Levelling Up Fund, which Southend Council are putting in regarding transport and also the visitor economy. And unless time arises later in the meeting, I won't say any more about those at this point in time. So with that fast forward introduction, we now move across to the presentations. And firstly, I think it is a welcome back to Kevin Waters and Mark Sheppard from Southend Council, and we'll be talking about usage classes and the local plan. So Kevin and Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much, Murray. And yes, it is a welcome back for me. I've certainly come here before, and I'm grateful for being invited back. So my name's Kevin Waters, for those of you who haven't met me before. I'm the Group Manager for Planning and Building Control at Southend. So the areas that I look after are the determination of planning related applications through our development control teams, the setting of the planning policy framework for the borough through the local plan and other associated documents, and the building control function that we run as the local building control authority, determining applications through the building regulations. But the subject I'm here to talk to you about today is some recent changes to the use class order, which one particular section of Class E, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute, I think has really significant challenges and opportunities for how our town centres have operated, and it is a very different framework for control from a local authority point of view to what we've seen in probably the last 30 years at least. So something quite significant there in terms of what people are used to and expecting when it comes to the consideration of planning related matters, and the role that we can play in shaping some of those spaces. On the other side of it, obviously, there are a lot of businesses that have had to put in planning applications that may well not need to do so now, which they may see as an opportunity to go in and do whatever it is they do. So there could be some freeing of the controls on the market there as well. So could the next slide, please? Thanks very much. So these changes came into force from September last year. They relate to England only. They most significantly introduce 3 new use classes, and it's that use class E that I mentioned earlier that is probably the most significant for the town centre, but I will also run through briefly classes F1 and F2, and that's just a reference in that last bullet point to the section of the Town and Country Planning Act which says that changes within a use class don't need planning permission. I don't need the consent of the council as the local planning authority. Next slide, please. So this is an overall table, which you'll probably see from the top left-hand corner. I've borrowed from Litchfields, who can generally be relied upon to do these sorts of things quite well. And it's probably the most useful slide I'll show you today. It gives you a really clear framework for looking at what the use class was previously in that first column on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side what the use class is now. Just as a quick run through some of the areas that haven't and have changed. On the right hand side in those light green slides you can see no significant changes around the residential uses, so the C related uses. No significant changes around B2 and B8, so their storage and heavy industrial uses. But what we have seen is a really significant change around what were the A use classes, and they've all now been eliminated. Uses A4 and A5 have become sui generis, which is a clever plenary way of saying that they don't fall into a use class, so to change it to those uses always needs planning permission. So A4 and A5, as many people will know, are respectively drinking establishments and takeaways, so quite significant there. Takeaways will always need planning permission now, so something that people will want to bear in mind when looking to bring in those kind of uses. And the other big changes relating to the D use classes, which have been broken up in various ways between use classes E, F1 and F2. Next slide, please. So, as I said at the start, this use class E is the one I'm going to spend the most time on, and I think this is the one that is most significant for looking at our town centre and how we look to shape that, the opportunities to control and the areas where businesses have been freed from planning related controls. So use classes A1, so shops, A2, which is professional services, and A3, so cafes and restaurants serving hot food on the premises, are all now removed and amalgamated into class E. So where you have a single use class, you don't need planning permission to change between those uses anymore. So if you were in any of those use classes before, you can now change between all 3 of those without needing planning permission. So one of the most common planning applications we have got historically in relation to town centres is a change from a shop or a bank or some kind of professional service to a restaurant. That now doesn't need planning permission, so very significant there. Also lumped within Class E are offices which members of the visiting public don't come to on a regular basis, so it's Class B1. So all of your sort of classic office type environments that people tend to think of as offices are also within this class, and you've also got a small element of certain uses that used to fall within D1 that relates to health services and things for visiting members of the public that offer health-related services. So you've got a really big use class there, lots of flexibility to change within that to a whole range of things that previously needed planning permission. So a very significant change there. Lots of control taken away from the planning authority and left to the market now to decide how what was a use within any of those classes changes interchangeably without any control from the local planning authority. Next slide, please. So I'm going to mention this one very briefly. I think use class F1, learning and non-residential institutions. So this is your old use class D1, which has been broken up slightly to put some of it into class E, and the rest of it has gone into class F1, and then F2, which are local community uses, which I wanted to mention because it's part of the changes, but probably isn't quite as significant for Southend's town centres. Next slide, please. And so just a little run through, what does this mean in practice? As we've said, it means that there are a whole series of situations now where people won't need planning permission. They will always need planning permission if they want to open a public house or a takeaway, though, so not quite as open as some of the people we've been talking to thought it might have been. There is a transition period which runs until the end of July this year, but in the intervening period, people can consider things under both systems. So quite a helpful approach there from the government. As we've said, lots of flexibility, quite a lot of opportunities there for businesses to go in and do new things without needing to receive consent from the local planning authority, but also quite a lot of risk from a council perspective, because areas and ways in which we were able to shape our town centre, we now find out of our control. So just to finish up, a few areas where we perhaps need to be careful when businesses are looking at what they're doing, where you have conditions on previous consent controlling the use classes that it can be used for in future, they still apply. So if a business is in any doubt as to what conditions were placed on it when it was originally granted, the key thing to do there is apply for a certificate of lawfulness. So that will tell you if you are able to make these types of changes that I've discussed here today or not without planning permission. So a very useful tool for people where there is uncertainty. The next point relates to a whole series of other restrictions. Obviously, planning is not the only thing that controls the use of buildings. There are all sorts of other leases, covenants, or other factors that may come into play. So just to bear those in mind. And a final one that seems like a bit of a technical point, but does come up surprisingly often, which is, so when you get use granted for a building, you have to actually begin that use before you can change it to something else. So if you got consent for an A1 use, a shop use historically, if that has sat there vacant and it's never been used, you can't change it now to one of those other uses within class E until that A shop use has actually begun. So just getting consent for it isn't enough. And I suppose just a final point there around policy controls. A number of councils across the country, I know, are quite unhappy at the loss of this control and are looking very carefully at what they might look to do to try and regain and pull back some of that control through planning policy. Although I have to say my view is that's looking quite difficult in terms of a legal way of doing that. So thank you very much. That's a very quick run through, quite a lot of change there. As Murray said at the start, if you do have any questions, I'm very happy to take those now.
Okay, I went offline and missed some of your presentation, so apologies on that, but I did have access to slides. I can't see any questions up. Just picking up on the last point. Is there a risk through this that there could be end up with a fragmented approach to trying to reboot and re-energise the high street? Do you feel?
I suppose it depends on your view on planning controls. So for those people out there who've just had planning permission refused for something they wanted to do, they'd probably be quite glad to see that the planning authority can't put its hand in and control some of this stuff now. But so there is an opportunity for the market and business to move flexibly within particularly that use class E in ways that it wasn't able to before. I do think that loss of control for councils, so very often it's looked to shape, Southend and many other councils have looked to shape where retail shopping occurs and possibly put restaurants and other leisure uses in a different place, and now that's going to be much harder. That is going to be left much more open to the market. So I think it really depends on whether you think this is something that should be market led, or if you feel that this is something that the council should have more of a hand in controlling.
Okay, no, thank you for that very much indeed. Okay, if you can hang on, because I appreciate you've got another presentation linking into planning, etc. So move on to the next part. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, local plan.
Hello, good morning. So I am Mark Sheppard and I'm the team leader of strategic planning. And I'm just here to talk to you about the local plan. If I can get the slides up, here we go. So we're looking to consult on the second stage of the local plan this summer. Just from the off, it's important to stress that we're still at an options stage, with the consultation will be focusing on potential development sites and a number of other key issues facing the town. So it doesn't at this stage contain any preferred policies or preferred sites. We're consulting on all the opportunities that are put before us. So pending council approval, we'll be going out for an 8-week consultation over the summer, and the feedback will help us to refine the plan as we go through a number of statutory stages. And the next stage after this one will be setting out what our preferred strategy is and what our preferred sites are. So the government requires all authorities to prepare and adopt a local plan, which will set out a suite of policies to guide and manage development. So in many instances, we won't be building the development ourselves, but we'll have a set of policies setting that national framework to help guide development, taking into account the public feedback we receive when we prepare the plan. So they're important in terms of getting local policies in place to manage new development and not just national policies. They're also important in securing infrastructure improvements and providing the certainty of development. So when we get to the end of this process and we adopt the plan, clearly the council would have approved those sites that it would like to see come forward over the next 20 years. So helps build developer confidence. So there's quite a lot on this slide, but it really just provides an overview of Southend, and it's really emphasising the plan will be looking at a range of issues, including planning for new jobs, the transport and infrastructure, providing new homes and protecting natural habitat, our parks and coastline, and setting out policies, responding to climate change and housing tenure. And we need to consider and balance all of these as we prepare the plan. And I've got a few slides that focus on a few of these subjects, but not all of them, given the time we have this morning. So focusing on economic growth and recovery, the local plan over the next 20 years needs to set out a framework to help facilitate 11,000 new jobs across the borough. The document sets out how a planning framework could help support that and enable this. And the document also looks at the future role of neighbourhood and local centres and the changing face of retail. And obviously, you have to take account of the sort of changes to the use class that Kevin has just outlined there. And we also set out potential opportunities and interventions to help revitalise the town centre and enhance the central seafront. Again, it's important to stress again that we're looking to set out a planning framework here, and it will be only part of the jigsaw. So there will obviously be a number of other strategies that the council and stakeholders and businesses would like to put into action. But this is really about setting out a plan that brings all of those together in a consistent format. So the plan will emphasises the importance of infrastructure-led growth, taking account of existing capacity and the phase in the future development. And we ask questions on infrastructure priorities, and we do that for the borough as a whole, but we also drill down into the many neighbourhoods within Southend that if you're a resident of Southend are very different. So it'd be really important to get the feedback from businesses, stakeholders and residents themselves, and what are the key infrastructure priorities for their areas and businesses. Okay, in terms of housing, and it is, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that it is a national priority and sort of declared sort of a housing a crisis, both nationally and within local areas. So looking forward over the next 20 years, we need to plan for around 23.5 new homes, and that's set out by a government standard methodology that is passed down to us, and we need to plan to meet it. So that's set in the context of over the last 20 years, we've delivered around 7,000 new homes. So a real step change. I guess what this slide is showing here is that during this time, so the last 20 years, we've seen a worsening of affordability and increasing housing pressures across the country. But actually, if you look at these slides, it's been more acute within Southend. And part of that issue obviously is led to the markets and so forth, but part of it is actually the amount we need to be building more housing. So looking at meeting housing needs, the local plan sets out a number of broad development opportunities that can be layered on to one another. We're taking an approach of looking at brownfield sites first. And each of these consists of a number of potential sites that have been promoted to us for development as part of the local plan process. And we're asking for feedback on both the broad opportunities and also the potential sites themselves. And within the document, you'll be able to see maps of the sites that have been promoted to us for development, and we're offering them up to gain feedback as part of this consultation process. So within the urban area as a whole, there's potential to deliver around 13,000 new homes, which is nearly twice what we delivered over the last 20 years. So, a real step change, and will be tricky for us to evidence that when we get to an examination at the end of the local plan process. Important to point out, I guess, up here, of that 10,000, around 6,500 have been promoted, been identified to us, but there's still around another 4,000 homes that are to be found, and it's called sort of windfall development, that we've estimated could come forward over the next 20 years through changes to sites that could come forward from permitted development, which we'd still need to evidence examination. So the sites under these two scenarios would primarily be brownfield development, help assist urban regeneration. Clearly, being in the urban areas, less impacts on the countryside, shorter leading times to deliver, given they're often smaller sites, although you can have lots of complexities around sort of contaminated, dealing with contaminated land, or knocking down other types of development to build housing. They're likely to deliver more flatted development and potentially less affordable housing, given the viability of brownfield development, and are likely to rely on the existing infrastructure rather than providing new infrastructure and new green spaces within the development, given they're likely to be smaller infill type development. And clearly they need to be carefully managed, particularly the impacts on existing communities and residents where these developments are coming forward. So moving to development opportunities C and D, and this is looking at the potential, moving away from the urban area, looking at the potential of delivering a new neighbourhood on the edge of Southend. Again, just to stress, this is potential options only at this stage. So C, setting out how new homes could be delivered within Southend only, which could deliver around 7,000 new homes within sites around Fossett's Farm and areas currently in agricultural use. And option D there looks at a more expansive scheme, working alongside Rochford District Council. That could go up to around sort of 10 to 12,000 new homes, but we should emphasise here that development within Rochford will be up to Rochford District Council and will be determined through their own local plan. But clearly we've been having ongoing discussions with Rochford around that and around the options that straddle the administrative boundaries. So this map or its illustration is a concept only prepared by one of the promoters, and it's really useful for gaining feedback. So this is showing what sort of a series of new neighbourhoods or new communities could look like. It won't look like this at this early stage. We'll have to go all the way through the local plan process and then through the planning application process, but it really gives an idea of what it could look like to help us get some feedback. So it's showing a series of developments linked together through new access roads and actually new green space. And the options, more than about just delivering new homes, it's really about delivering all the facilities and infrastructure that's needed to deliver a new neighbourhoods. And that's one of the advantages of greenfield development, is you have the space to deliver your new schools, your new health facilities, new space for roads that not only can bring benefits to the new communities, but also existing areas of Southend. But clearly comes with pressures on building on the countryside. The majority of this is greenbelt, designated as greenbelt land, so it will have to be looked at as a balance, as I said from the start. So a few sort of headlines here of what a new neighbourhood could provide a significant amount of new accessible green space, and looking at a concept of providing a new country park at this area of Southend. As I said, it would involve the loss of agricultural land that's currently designated as greenbelt. It could, it would provide new jobs and substantial investment into the area, both in terms of construction value and enhanced resident spending by the increased population. So it would require new infrastructure and transport improvements, and we've done sort of an estimation based on SIL and Section 106, and it could bring in around 450 million pounds in terms of contribution to new infrastructure, just as an estimation. Just to re-emphasise really that these are all options at this time. So moving away from housing, the documents also asks questions around the different transport priorities for the town, both in terms of sustainable transport, walking, cycling, the private car, And we also ask a question and seek views on creating a new link road from the A127 round to Shoebury Ness, which would in part facilitate the provision of new neighbourhoods, but also act as relief to the local network to the east of the borough. And we set out some diagrams around that within the consultation document. We also present a number of options for updating the policy around the airport and the future growth of the airport. And clearly, there's economic advantages of growth at the airport that are considerable to the local area in terms of jobs and investment. Also, we need to look at some of the environmental and social impacts of that as well. I'm not touching all of the chapters of the local plan there, but we also include questions around climate change, protecting parks and the coastline, and actually looking to achieve sort of a net increase in biodiversity, even if development was to be built on agricultural land, what we could do to increase biodiversity and opening up areas of land that's not accessible to the public. So the consultation is scheduled to start in the summer. We're still going through the approval processes, and when we get there, I'd really welcome everyone's views. The more views we get, how useful it is as we prepare the next stage of the local plan. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Mark, on that. I'm picking up on something from Perry. Hi, Perry Gladding. How are Southend's housing target numbers coordinated with those across the whole of the South Essex? And do we know what the total numbers are for South Essex, and how are the local plans across South Essex linked by the local authorities? Sorry, quite a long question, but relevant.
So in terms of the government standard method of housing need that we need to meet, that's for each authority. So it goes down to the authority level. So we all have our own targets, so to speak. And there's a number of tests that the government applies on us that are done at that authority level. What we're looking to do across South Essex is to help coordinate that, and you'll all be aware of, I'm probably aware of ASALA, Association of South Essex Local Authorities, where we're looking to put in place a non-statutory framework that will bring together all of the elements of both adopted and emerging local plans to make sure we're coordinating that across the wider geography. So it's really the sum of the parts, and looking how we can help coordinate that from that higher level.
Okay, no, thank you, Mark. And I think it's a comment, another comment, it's come up abbreviated on my screen, but I think it's from Andrew Harper Rowe. Is there an opportunity to link the local plan to the town centre regeneration and repurpose existing building stock to residential, revitalise the town centre and reduction of carbon footprint, the reuse of existing infrastructure, etc.?
Absolutely. So we already have an adopted document that was adopted back in 2018, the Southend Central Area Action Plan, that sets out the planning framework for the town centre and central seafront. That's quite detailed. But going forward, the local plan will be reviewing those policy provisions, and we will be setting out that framework for the next 20 years. And we include within the consultation document some potential interventions that we really welcome people's feedback on, and potential sites. But I guess we stress again that this is really just setting the planning framework, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I know the council are looking at, and I know other stakeholders across the town are looking at so how we can actually implement some of the provisions within the plan and broader strategies.
Great, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, I think from my side, and having to declare an interest of living relatively near a possible redesignation of agricultural land, shall I say, I think the key will be as to the road connectivity that goes with that, actually in tandem, not retro, if you know what I mean, with housing development. But that's just a personal observation. I'm not saying it represents the Southend Business Partnership, okay. And I see for my friend Gary, our Vice Chair, are we looking at alternative transport options other than roads? Are you able to say anything there now?
So we are. So within the consultation document, we drill down into each of the neighbourhoods, as I've said, and we start sort of identifying at that level all the different opportunities, not just road. So around making the most of our, the train stations, improving the bus network and cycle routes. Sitting alongside the local plan the council will be preparing a new local transport plan, which the two will marry together, and that will explore in more detail all of the transport options and opportunities.
Thank you. That's been very helpful, Mark, and great to see you back again. And I know the Southend Business Partnership and the executive will have a closer look at things and be wanting to input probably individually as well, with people having various business interests, and equally as individuals as some of us residents in the town. So many thanks for taking the time for being here today, and also to Kevin, who's already departed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I'm just picking up on any other messages. I've got a nice message in chat from Ali, which I won't attempt to read out, and so please read that. Okay, now it's sort of seamless, really. Moving on, actually, sticking with into housing. We're really welcoming back Samantha Sam Waite of Swan Housing to talk about the modular approach and also Better Queensway, which is something that's up and coming and very much a big impact for the town, positive, I hasten to add, for the future. Sam, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen? Have I managed to do the first task?
Excellent, well done.
Brilliant, yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here, albeit virtually today, not in Southend. Murray wanted positivity, opportunity, and also reminded us, of course, about the importance of the environment. And I'm really hopeful that my presentation today will give you something on each of those themes. So thank you for inviting me to attend. I am Sam Waite. I'm Director of Business Development and External Affairs at Swan, which is a great job because it gets me out and meeting everybody, and I'm very interested in particular in you all as stakeholders, and also in the regeneration work that we do that I'm going to talk about today. I am going to, I'm not moving on my slides. Let's try. Oh, there we go. Right. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Swan. I know many of you have met us over the last 2 years, but I'm just going to do a bit of a refresh and remind you who we are and what we're about. I'm going to whiz through our modular approach. Now, it will be a whistle-stop tour. At another time when we're out of lockdown, please do contact me and you can come and have a look and see how we work. And then I'm also going to give you a quick update on our Better Queensway project. We've got a number of the Better Queensway team on this call today, so I'm hoping that we will give you a bit of a taste of what we're up to and what's coming next. So a bit of a reminder about what Swan is. So first and foremost, the thing you need to know, because I'm going to tell you lots of glossy and exciting things that are going on, is Swan exists to provide homes and services for people who need them. And that social purpose underpins everything that we do. So if we do something that looks very glossy and commercial, it's because the money that comes from that we're able to make is reinvested in homes and services. We are a regulated housing provider. And what that means is we have just shy of 12,000 homes that we own and manage across Essex and East London. And those are social housing homes. They're affordable homes for rent. They include shared ownership properties, but they also include really specialist housing. So foyers for young people who can't stay at home and need that extra support to get their lives going. It involves NHS accommodation, which of course has been essential during COVID, and lots of learning and disability and older persons housing. So that's all really important to us. And you can see on my slide there that we've been going since '94, and we've grown a lot in that time, but that growth has been through regeneration work, and you will be experiencing us doing the Better Queensway regeneration. That's classic Swan. We really like going into an area where the community isn't thriving because of their environment, and to improve that environment with good housing, but also, you know, support around employment and training, a mixed use, mixed tenure estate to just really drive up sustainability and make it a great place to live. And that's what we're all about. We do have our own in-house developer, New Living, who many of you will have heard of, and we have a quite significant pipeline in process. So over the next few years, we're going to be delivering 8,000 homes across Essex and East London. 50% of those are affordable, and that's our business model. And we are, I'm going to give you a bit of an insight into the amount of projects we've got in the South Essex Thames Estuary growth area in a moment. And I think you'll understand why, as someone who lives in Essex and the areas that we're tackling, I'm really passionate about it. So we're going to talk today about our modular housing factory. So I won't talk about that too much yet. But I suppose it's just really to say that it's all about making a difference at Swan, and we're delighted to be working on the Better Queensway project. So as I hinted, we've got some really good stuff going on. So well, Perry will be pleased that I've started with Purfleet-on-Thames on this slide. This is the large scale regeneration of Purfleet. It is including 2,800 homes. However, it's much wider than that. It's a new town centre, and we're going to have a new railway station, and we're going to put in colleges and medical centres, and that really is possible because we're working in partnership. So we're working in a joint venture with PCRL, and we are working very closely with Thurrock Council. We're working with the Thames Estuary Growth Board. We're working with MHCLD to bring about such a large-scale regeneration, and critically, we're working with the community, and that's a theme I hope you will spot today. We're working on Langdon Place in Basildon, replacing what many of you will know has been a horrendously failing shopping centre for a long time with a new high street, and that will feature in my presentation in a moment. We're doing the Better Queensway project, which you know, of course, all about, and we're doing the Beechwood Village regeneration of the Craylands estate, and I'm really going to tell you a bit more about that as part of my presentation. But the thing that Murray's asked me to talk about first today is modular housing. Now, some of you will be experts. I am not an expert, and I'm not a technical person, but I'm just going to give you a quick idea of what modular housing means. Essentially, there's loads of different language used: off-site, modular, whatever, it doesn't matter. The essence of it all is, instead of building your new home on a building site in the usual traditional way, you basically are making factory made housing. The extent to which your housing is factory made depends on how much of a modular approach you want to take. So you could just manufacture a bathroom pod and slot it into a traditionally built house on a site, and you still save yourself some time, but that's not what we do. So we have our own factory in Basildon. In fact, we now have two, but we've had a factory since 2017, and the approach that we have taken is a fully volumetric approach. We essentially build a box, and that box is perhaps a third of a home, and so that box will then be fitted out on the factory production line, just like if you imagine a Model T Ford working its way around. It will start off as a box, then it will get the wiring, then it will get the plumbing, and then it will get the kitchen put in, and then it will be painted and floor carpeted, and then it will be put on a lorry, taken to site, and the house assembled. And that is the top form of modular housing. And the reason why that's beneficial is because you are disrupting local people's lives less, because you're doing the work in the factory, but also there's lots of benefits to working in a factory. You can be much more productive, you can be much greener, and I'll talk about those as I work our way through. We use cross-laminated timber, which is a fancy name for some very clever wood. And we also are moving into steel, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. Across our 2 factories, we will eventually be able to produce 1,000 homes a year. And to give you an idea of what the team can do in the factory, they can build a 3-bed home, despite working in COVID-safe ways, so slightly split shifts, etc., in 10 days. Now, that doesn't mean the house that the resident or the buyer is going to move into is finished in 10 days, not at all. That means that the modules that make up the house are ready, but those then have to be transported to site, and our site teams will clad and put the roofs on, and I'll show you some photos in a moment. The savvy among you will be wondering whether these newfangled homes can be mortgageable and last, and many people will think of prefabs. And thankfully, the agenda has moved on. I remember in the early days, we got a lot of reporting about Swan were building prefabs. To be honest with you, the homes are basically built traditionally, but in a factory. So you'll see some photos in a moment, but they are fully accredited and warranted, and people can buy them with a mortgage. And we can build flats and house modules. So this is an image of Factory 1, and this is located in Basildon in Essex. That's really important to us because this is where this is very close to the Craylands regeneration we are delivering. So the modules that are made here go 2 miles down the road to Beechwood, and that's really important. With modular, you need to be near where you are because that increases the efficiencies. And we'll talk in a minute about how you can save 90% waste, and you can reduce carbon by 40% by working in this way. So in this factory, in a Model 2 production line, our team produced these models, and what you can see in front of you is models made of wood, and they will be fitted out entirely on the factory floor and then delivered to site and clad. Now, what's interesting about why Swan chose to go down the modular route, and it is gaining much more traction now, but when we started, it wasn't. We were really quite innovative. There were lots of reasons, but we had the classic problems with weather. We'd had contractors becoming insolvent, and there is a huge construction skills shortage. So one of the interesting things about the factory is that because it's such a controlled environment, people who might not want to work on a construction site do choose to work in the factory, but also it has the benefits of, because it's so controlled, we can train people. And one of the key passions that are coming through at Swan is getting people into careers as multi-skilled operatives, and we're doing lots of work with Essex County Council and all the boroughs about promoting that. We've got a Kickstart programme running at the moment for local people. So hopefully you'll get a flavour for how we're really trying to bring the benefits of our work to the local community. However, I've mentioned that the thing about modular is lots of people think it's going to be all the same. So we went out of our way at Beechwood to really design up the homes. You would never know they were modular, and in fact, they're really quite swish, as you can see. And here are some real life photos of the show homes. They're quite quirky. We've got some Danish architects working on this with us, but they've been a massive hit. And what's interesting is they are fully customizable, these homes at Beechwood. And what that means is, I'm sure many of you will have gone online and designed a car. Essentially, the buyers of these homes, and I should say, this element of the regeneration of Craylands is quite far into it. We've already been working on this for quite a number of years, and we've built the first 450 homes to decant the existing residents on the estate, and we've been able to build the community facilities, etc. So this is now the phase that's going to subsidise the earlier social housing, etc. So these are for sale, for shared ownership and a private sale, but the buyers can customise them. Now, why would we do that? Well, I just told you that it's a mixed tenure estate. The government research shows that if you have any element of customisation ability in your home, you're more likely to stay. And at Swan, we want to build long-term sustainable communities. We want people to put down roots. So by doing this, people can design their home entirely. No 2 homes are the same. And the government findings show that people stay for up to 15 years compared to 5 if they just buy a new build. So people go online, they tot up the price in the corner, their design goes off to our factory, and the home is built and delivered to their specifications. And that all works. And I know Kevin's gone, but the planning team at Basildon, they're all happy with this. We've got a pattern book and it all works really well. So this is an example of how this is one of the lanes in the regeneration, and everybody designs their homes and then it looks like this, but there's no guarantee what it will look like. It's very flexible, and that's really positive. So you're probably wondering then why we've got a second factory. Well, the thing is, post Grenfell, you're not allowed to build using cross-laminated timber or wood because it's a combustible material over a certain height. And many of our projects do involve building at height. So we've recently acquired a factory 2 in Basildon. It's opposite our existing factory. And brilliantly, the timing worked for us because we were able to work with Opportunity South Essex and the Local Enterprise Partnership to secure getting building funding, which is fantastic. And the reason why, and I think this is where I'm hoping to address Murray's concern about opportunity, this is all about creating new jobs and creating Essex as at the heart of a real manufacturing of homes and that expertise. And it's expected that this factory will create 120 additional jobs and just build the expertise. So it was brilliant to get the Getting Building funding. We've got 4.53 million. So that's fantastic. And that's been fitted out at the moment, progressing really well. All the signage, as you can see, is up. And those homes will be, the steel homes we'll create there will be deployed at Lanesden Place. And you can see Lanesden has, it's got a concrete core with all the new high street and then ground floor, and then above will be the modular homes. So why, Murray reminded us about Clean Air Day. Why are we interested in modular as well? Because actually, as I mentioned, it's an extremely sustainable way of working. It's as obvious as if you're in a factory, you don't waste as much. So there's less wastage, there's less deliveries. So often when you think about is a home green, you'll think about, is it green to run? Does it use less energy? But actually, you've got to remember it's about the embodied carbon, how much carbon was spent building those homes. And the CLT homes at Beechwood are actually carbon negative for the first 2 years. So really important part of the response to carbon, to cutting carbon. And I think that it has been recognised very much by the government, and the new affordable homes programs that's come out from Homes England does require 25% of homes to have be built from modular. So that, I think that really shows how this approach is gaining traction. And finally, on my side on modular, I've just sort of set out some of the benefits of modular, and we'd love to show you around our factory when we're all open again. But it is pretty quick to build a 3-bedroom home. Agreed, you've got to do the stuff on site, and then you've got to phase it, and you can't let people move into one home on the phase of site. We know all that, but actually the production side of things is quick. It's extremely precision engineered, and there's no the bash it with a hammer and get the radiator on. No, it's the production line increases the quality because everything gets checked before it can move on. And as I've said, the process itself saves 40% in the carbon, but also we're achieving 90% reductions in waste. So overall, we're really passionate about using modular. We do believe it will help to really address the housing crisis by speeding up production, and we're very much looking forward to hopefully bringing the steel modular homes into some of our future schemes. So that's my little update on modular. I know you're all super interested. I hope I'm doing all right for time, Murray. A quick whiz through Better Queensway and where we are. So the Better Queensway project, as you all know, we're working in partnership with Southend Borough Council. We're in a joint venture. We've created Porter's Place on LLP, and we're delivering this project, which has I know is absolutely essential to Southend. You all know where we are. It's got the Queensway, but it goes out to include the extra bits of South Church. And we have planning now. We got planning earlier in the year, which was incredible, a huge moment for the whole team. We've really consulted with residents. We know they're really passionate about having this regeneration, and so we've got the go ahead for 1,700 plus homes, really high quality, all with their own private space like a balcony or a garden, totally essential in a post-COVID world. Commercial space, but not too much. We're not aiming to compete with the high street. Lots of public realm, so lots more trees, lots more parks. When you think of how concrete the Queensway estate is now, it's going to be transformed. We are retaining those 4 lanes of traffic along the Queensway, and I think this came up earlier. Yes, much more cycling connections, and there will be some workspace usage, some and very limited retail, but that's about creating a sustainable community and opportunities rather than seeking to compete. So we will transform the arrival from Southend Victoria. As I've said, lots of public spaces, increase hopefully the footfall for your businesses, and also there'll frankly be more residents living there. So we believe hopefully that we can work together and make this regeneration really brilliant for Southend. This is what it's looking like, very exciting. And just some shots. Many of you will have seen these. We've put them around, and hopefully you've seen our films. But this is the new setting for All Saints Church, really bringing that back into the community. This is as you come out of Victoria Square Station, with lots of really setting a new standard really for when you arrive into Southend, helping with tourism. And yeah, just a quick plan there showing the extent of the Porter's Place Park, which is going to be really quite transformative, and there it is. And all the homes are built around the central park to have lots of views of green spaces, and a really large play area for children, but also not just for kids, you know, lots of spaces to think about mindfulness. We've all learned during COVID that you need good quality public realm on your doorstep. So next steps, the phase 1 reserve matters will be submitted later in the summer, and we're hoping we'll get the determination in the autumn. You may have seen survey work going on, the groundwork's done, and Graham and his team are analysing the results. Highways work should start later in the year. We should begin building the new homes in 2022. That's really critical because when we complete the phase 1, the first tower block can be decanted, the residents will move into the new homes, and Quantock can come down, and then a chain of building, moving residents on, and we'll carry on. And this is the kind of thing that Swan has been doing for a long time. And then James, my colleague, who's also on this call, is already running and working with the residents on a range of community activities so that we can ensure we deliver the social value you all expect from the scheme. So I think that is my update, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Great. Well, Sam,
was that all right? Was I terrible on timings?
No. You had a lot to cover there. You've done good. You've done good. Hyla has said that about linking up, etc. So I'll leave you to read that message there.
Right.
But no, certainly from somebody that's chaired a housing association on a regional basis, what you're involved in is absolutely fantastic, and really look forward to the positive outcomes. You know, not only on modular housing, which is a very interesting aspect, but also, you know, better Queensway. And I do very much identify that, you know, that it will be helpful to the town centre, provided we obviously at the same time get the town centre in a format that meets needs. So great. So hopefully we'll have a win-win. And I know there are many other people on this call who will be very interested in all of this. And especially I see Riz there as well. And thank you very much indeed. And thank you for your colleagues being online. And this recording will be made available and heavily promoted of the event. So this event, so hopefully it'll get to a wider audience as well, Sam. So thank you again.
Brilliant, thank you. And I have stopped sharing my screen, haven't I?
You still got Swan up there, somewhere to feel at home.
Okay.
Subtle marketing.
I can't get out of my.
Sam, when I share mine, it should just over.
Oh, good. Override me, Caroline. Honestly,
anyway.
In the meanwhile, you're right, Mary. I believe the subliminal marketing on the screen. My comms team will be pleased with me.
Excellent. So thank you again, and moving on. Right. Conscious overall of time, and I gather that our colleagues from Thames Estuary have got pressing time demands. So just to be helpful, but we're still looking to be able to allow time for Airport Business Park. Welcome to Perry and Ian, and I'll let you do your own introductions.
I'll let you go first, Ian.
Oh, thank you very much, Murray. I really do appreciate this switching round, and we'll be quick to get you back on time again. So I'm Ian Lewis. I'm Exec Director from the Thames Estuary Growth Board. The Perry, if you want to do a quick introduction.
Yeah, no, I'm Perry Gladding. I'm the sort of Chair of Opportunity South Essex, and therefore Vice Chair. That leads into Vice Chair of the Thames Estuary Growth Board.
Great, thanks, Perry. So if we can just move on a slide, please. Right, just a very brief history of where we came from. The government commissioned a report in 2018 called the Thames Estuary 2050 Growth Commission, and out of that report they highlighted that the coordination and engagement with the estuary was a real problem and a real challenge for colleagues in Whitehall, because there wasn't a single clear voice from the estuary, but also equally there wasn't a clear single point that the estuary could actually engage with Whitehall on either. So following that, the government in their response to the Commission's report is committed to the creation of the role of the Thames Estuary Envoy to be that voice of the estuary, and that would be supported by a private sector led board. So unusually, the government committed £1 million worth of funding to get this set up. Now, we're the only place in the UK that they've actually done that. But that's enabled us to get the envoy in place, a lady called Kate Willard, who some of you probably remember from Southend Airport. We've also gone out and recruited a private sector board, established our work plan, and advanced quite a number of different programs of work, all of which during lockdown as well. So we have made over the last 12 months quite some significant progress. So just move on, please. So who are we? We are unusually we are government backed, as I said, but we are charged with making sure that the potential of the estuary is really realised. So the board brings together leadership from across the region, across both public and private sectors, and the board has a majority of private sector members recruited on the basis of what they could actually bring to the table in terms of their ability, skills, and so on, to actually enable us to move forward. Each of them are all committed and passionate to developing growth across the estuary. So as you would expect, the Growth Board will bring together the right people at the right time to genuinely deliver change and create that opportunity. We have developed that clear, single voice and consistent range of messaging to both ministers and government departments, and have subsequently also improved our profile quite significantly across Whitehall as well. And also we're very, very clear about how the estuary can actually deliver on some of the cornerstone government policies, such as decarbonisation and levelling up. On top of this, we're also working with a range of investment organisations to understand what it is they need from the estuary to make them come here and invest. So next slide, please. So in terms of how we work, we, from the very, very outset, we wanted to make sure the board had a distinct personality. And part of that is to always add value and not duplicate. There's always a danger when creating something like this that it steps on toes somewhere. So we've been really careful and very clear about a clear and distinct role for the Growth Board. Local areas and groupings, so we have Southend, we have the South Essex local authorities, all do a great role in delivering growth and what they need to for their communities. We don't seek to want to duplicate that at all. But what we want to do is amplify that work, but also look at where we can add value, where the estuary scale can really help. We also want to make sure that the estuary, across the estuary, we always feel the benefit of that any investment that comes to us. So what we have been able to do is put in place through the Growth Board a structure that is able to sort of tackle some of the really big issues for which there isn't a structure or an organisation in place to actually deal with it. And I'll come on to some of those projects a little bit later on. We've also been very clear about our messaging, as I've said, but I think the really big difference is that we are investor and investment led. We're not creating a business case to go to government to ask for many billions of pounds to invest in the estuary. We're starting with what is the investment proposition, and then what do we need from government to help us deliver that and unlock that and realise those big headline government aims that I talked about in the previous slide. So I don't know whether, Perry, if there's anything you'd wish to sort of add to that, just to give a bit of flavour from a board perspective.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ian. I think that slide is very, very important because, you know, this need not to duplicate is incredibly important, and we need to amplify the message of the Thames and what the Thames has got. And I think that's recognised with how we've put the board together, the private sector board. The board members come from all different sectors, and not only in the UK as well. We've got global players that are in this sector as well, and that's covering not only the finance, legal, construction, but a heavy view on the creative sector as well, with a mind for the digital improvement right across the area. And as Ian mentioned, the funding is there at the moment for the Thames Estuary Growth Board, but this body's got to be very much self-sustaining going forward. That's a long word to use first thing on a morning, that's for sure. But we've got to look at a strategic investment partner approach here and platform. So what you'll hear more from us going forward, and Ian will touch on the projects we're working on, which are actually very well aligned with those major projects that are Sailor is focused on in South Essex at the moment, as you will get a sense of how that investment partnership through the TEGB, through business boards such as yourselves, can enhance the benefit overall for the Thames Estuary, not only for businesses, but for the wider community. So, Ian, I'll let you carry on with the slides, but I just want to sort of echo the importance of what we're amplifying as a message of hope and growth for an opportunity for the Thames.
Right, thanks, Perry. If we could just move on to the next slide, please. I won't linger on this. I know we all like a map, but I think the key point I'd like to make here is there is a red line on the map which talks about our geography. One of the principles we do have is we don't believe in having red lines. We believe that the boundary for the estuary should be fuzzy because there are certain things which might help the estuary. You know, things that are happening just outside might help us, and vice versa. So I would treat that more as a working geography rather than a hard and fast you're in, you're out type of geography. But I just want to echo the point there that it is a complex landscape. We're working across 20 odd local authorities, 2 LEPs, all sorts of different partnerships, many government departments. But it's our job to try and bring that all together and make that sing within the estuary. So if we can move on, please. So our current areas of work, I'll chip into a couple of these in a little bit more detail shortly. But these are, again, just going back to areas where there isn't a grouping or an organisation that's able to take some of these forward, but they're important. So our first one is developing a hydrogen ecosystem for the estuary. As I say, I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail shortly. The second one is around digital infrastructure. And that links really strongly with the works that ASLA are doing across South Essex, and there are some projects underway at the moment which will form the start of this, but we will show how we're going to build from that and use that as a really strong jumping off point. We're working with Homes England to develop the themes that the Growth Commission came up with, but to understand how they would apply to the estuary in real life and what that looks like and how that works forward. So again, we're working very closely with colleagues across South Essex on that, very much looking at that both primarily bottom up as well, because South Essex has done a lot of work in this space and we just need to build on that and help them and help move that forward. The Thames Freeport, I'll come back to, but that again is another really strong message of alignment between the priorities of the Growth Board and those of South Essex, and with implications for Southend as well. And equally, we're doing some other pieces of work which demonstrate our different approach. So the commercial case for transfer of freight to the river, we're not doing a study to say what's possible, we're doing a business plan to actually deliver it. So that's just gives you a slightly different feel for an understanding for how we work that a bit differently. And with Lower Thames Crossing, we're challenging them to actually demonstrate how are they going to deliver the benefits that they're talking about, and then also stretching them to see can we make that even better. So we're working in a slightly different way to the way, say, LEPs and other regional organisations have worked in the past. So if you just come on to the next slide, please. So just really quickly, I'll just skip through the Freeport. So a Freeport is a zone where different customs and tax rules can apply. So where this could be useful is if you're importing a raw material, you could manufacture that into a product and then re-export it, but not have to touch the sides in the UK in terms of customs or tax or anything else. And for a lot of businesses, that's actually very, very attractive because you're going to the place where the expertise is, adding the value to the product and re-exporting it again without the sort of paperwork and drag that might go along with that. So Freeport status was confirmed for the Thames Freeport in March, and that covers 4 locations across Tilbury, London Gateway, Thames Enterprise Park, and the Dagenham Ford site at Dagenham, with the proposals of leading to investment of potentially £400 million and 25,000 new jobs. We need to recognise, though, that the benefits of this must be felt across the estuary as a whole, and particularly across South Essex. And we need to make sure that happens, and that is one of the key focuses of the Growth Board, to make sure that that does happen. I don't know whether, Perry, if there's anything you wanted to add to this one.
Only in just so everybody's aware that the Freeport team, the Shadow Board, have to now put together an outline business case to government, and that has to be submitted by the 31st of July. And there is a detailed document, actually, Murray, we can share with you, that you can share with colleagues. There's some high hurdles for this free port to reach, and not least demonstrating where the real benefit of a free port is for the wider community. So how sort of stretching out across South Essex in the case of the Freeport Thames, and also that it doesn't negatively affect areas around the Freeport by benefiting the Freeport, but not other areas. So, you know, there's some high hurdle questions there for the outline business case, and happy, Murray, to share that sort of government direction which came out yesterday, and you'll get a real sense that government needs to be all over this to make sure there is public intervention when required. So we'll share that with you, okay?
Great, thanks, Perry. If we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so digital is one of our key programs. So we have the ambition for the estuary to have world-class digital infrastructure, and we've commissioned a really substantial piece of work to examine what our digital connectivity is and what a plan for investment could look like. This is in the context that on a global scale, we've identified we're probably just a bit below average in terms of our digital capabilities at the moment. So the way that we are approaching this is quite differently, is that we'll be capturing all the growth projects, understanding the scale, but what we'll be doing differently is that we will break new ground in how we engage with the market. So firstly, we'll clarify what the market, so by the market I mean the broadband providers and so on, are actually delivering over the next few years. We'll then cross-reference that with all of the growth plans and then reflect these back to the market, overlaying all of those growth plans to actually give the market a much clearer understanding of the scale of opportunity, therefore demand, customers, investment potential. And I don't believe this is an approach that's been done in the UK before. And this just shows how the international reach of our board members has really helped this, because we've brought in an American consultancy to advise on this, and this approach is quite common in the States. So we're basically explaining to the market where the opportunities are, and then we'll start pushing with them. How do we make those tangible and make those real? I think they've come up with a really interesting conclusion so far, that the opportunity cost of not investing in the infrastructure vastly outweighs the cost of investing in the infrastructure. So I think that is a really clear and key message for us from that. And I think it really does chime well with the ambitions of South Essex with digital as one of the key 5 programmes that the area is looking at for an area for improvement. So we can just move on to the last slide, please. And the last one I just wanted to talk through very, very briefly is around the work we're doing around hydrogen. It's going to have a really big role in helping the UK achieve its net zero ambitions. It's by no means a silver bullet. It's not going to solve every problem. There are applications where hydrogen just isn't the right approach, but it will have quite a big role to play. The opportunity for us is that we are, in the estuary, the largest CO2 emitter in the country. And bear that in mind, we don't have the steel mills and other things that other parts of the country have, but we're still the largest CO2 emitter. So we started exploring this last year, and then moving really swiftly, the Growth Board made a really strong decision to invest quite a significant amount of money in understanding what's the scale of the opportunity and what does an investment plan look like. So our work to date, we've engaged with industry, with investors and so on. The level of interest has been quite staggering. We've had over 200 people to various things that we've organised. I think we had 120 alone, just to investors interested in this space. We're a little bit behind on the work because we felt it was much better to actually chase a lot of this stuff out rather than work to an artificial deadline, and that approach is paying dividends at the moment. So what we've been able to do is map where we have got really strong areas of demand, supportive conditions for supply, distribution and storage, and around that started to identify clusters of where businesses might be able to start working together to actually generate a business case and that investment proposition for at-scale investment. But obviously that will be a bit further down the line. We're also looking at projects which will get this rolling as well. So we'll be finalising this report over the next few weeks, probably publishing it before the summer, but we'll be doing a lot more work around this and more engagement activity around it probably in the autumn. But I think that just shows this one is one of those issues where scale of the estuary is what landed it on the investors' interest on their radar. There's been no other organisation able to take forward looking at something like this on this scale, and it really does genuinely add value to the whole of the estuary, both individual locations, but across the piece as a whole. So if I could leave it there, I appreciate I've cantered through that really quickly just to help us get back some time.
Okay, thank you, Perry. Is there a final word from your side before I move on to the airport?
No, I think, Mary, look, thanks for the time today. I think Ian's covered at sort of some pace what the Thames Estuary Growth Board is all about. I think the exciting stuff will come in the second half of this year, and if we can be invited back on a regular basis, we'll more than happy to give you an update on that, either directly to the Southend board or through yourself through OSC, Mary. So thanks for that.
That's fine. I think our airport has expressed, I think, an interest in the free port. As to how that works out, obviously we have to wait and see, don't we?
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, it's outside the boundary which Ian has just covered. Having said that, though, and we advised the Southend board on this about a couple of weeks ago, is that they should encourage their marketing to reflect the benefit of being very close to a free port, and that they themselves can benefit from the air freight that they can attract through Southend. So I think there's some common ground there, Murray, that will benefit Southend, although it seems to be far off at the moment. It won't take long to truly happen.
Great. Well, thank you, Ian, also for your time this morning. Thank you for the presentation. Greatly appreciated, and see you guys no doubt shortly in the future. Thank you. Right, moving on, and thank you, Harry, and thank you, Emma, for your forbearance and just rejigging the running order. And feel free to say what you were wanting to say about the airport business park, because I will be brief at the end. Okay, thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Murray. Sujan, Hyla, can I just check if you've got the slides, whether you want me to share them?
Emma, it's entirely up to you. I do have them ready, but if you prefer to control it,
if you could pop them up on screen, Hyla, that would be great. Thank you. So just while Hyla's doing that, good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Emma Cooney. I'm the Council's Director of Regeneration and Growth. And together with Harry Bunbury from HBD, we're going to take you on a quick virtual canter around the development of the Airport Business Park Southend in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So, Hyla, if you pop onto the next slide, please. We've got here a bit of a timeline, and for those who are familiar with the business park project, I'm sure that for some it will feel like it's been a long time in the making, as it was part of the plans that were developed for the Joint Area Action Plan, which evolved over a period of time, working with our colleagues at Rochford, and finally adopted by both councils back in December 14. However, it also feels like it's been no time at all in bringing the site to life, because as you can see from that slide, since adopting the JAP at the end of 2014, we've hit some really significant milestones on a regular basis across the last 5 or so years, which have included the appointment of HBD as our partner on the project, the successful relocation of Westcliff Rugby Club to their new home at the north of the site, implementation of core infrastructure, and of course our continued progress on site over the last 18 months despite the global situation. So we absolutely recognise that major regen schemes like Airport Business Park play a really key role both in the now and in the future of Southend. And for now, particularly supporting economic recovery through creation of jobs, upskilling opportunities, business growth, and more widely, that confidence in doing business here. So we've worked really hard to keep the development progressing and continuing to deliver against the 2050 ambition, which was referred to earlier, and our recovery priorities. So I'm going to hand over to Harry now, who'll take you through some of the elements of the business park.
Thank you, Emma, and a good morning to everybody. For those who don't know me on this call, I am Harry Bunbury, Director in HBD's London office. Just very briefly on HBD, we were once upon a time called Henry Boot Development. We rebranded to a three-letter acronym to run with the industry of HBD. And these kind of partnership projects is what we do. We're headquartered in Sheffield, as many people know. Our development pipeline across the country, our national platform is about 1.4 billion worth of development work. And of that, somewhere in the region of 22 to 23 of those projects are delivered in partnership approaches, such as my personal favourite project of Airport Business Park Southend, which I have been working on since we came onto the scene in 2015. I'm not going to say a great deal to this slide, other than to say, for those who don't know yet, we are accessed off Cherry Orchard Way, clearly the main link road between Rochford and Southend. And whilst we are indeed Airport Business Park Southend, we are working with the absolute support, cooperation embedded in the planning policy with Rochford District Council as well. If we could keep moving on, please. What have we been up to since 2015? The next few slides is a number of progress so far. We have successfully relocated Westcliff Rugby Football Club. We have delivered for them a new clubhouse. And most importantly, everything we do at Henry Boot is about working locally, generating opportunities, generating economic recovery. And we are so pleased to be had the opportunity to work with AW Hardy Southend contractor base, and in the meantime created in the region of 80 construction jobs. The biggest sadness of Westcliff Rugby Club is that they moved in December 2019. They had 1 or 2 games and then the shutters came down for reasons we all know. Being positive about it, the shutters are going back up again. I have a call on Friday afternoon with the senior management of Westcliff Rugby Club, and we will be powering up the building once more, and rugby will be returning to the pitches, which is a great recovery for us all and a great thing for the local area, given the social impact that the clubhouse and the rugby club provides for so many people in the area. If we keep going, if we may. Our other biggest success story, and there'll be other people on this call who know more about the IPECO than I do, but we have been absolutely thrilled to deliver the 135,000 square foot industrial facility for IPECO. The cooperation and partnership of working with them has been an absolute pleasure. We've also been delighted to have supported the council's sector construction academy approach to the construction, and that has been done in cooperation with Reedy Construction, who is a very significant, almost bordering on tier 1 contractor. They are based in Bromford, so it's not Southend, but it is local. We think that facility is a absolute anchor to the project. And we make the comment that we hope that we will be working with IPECO in the short to medium term to provide future expansion opportunities for them. If we could keep going. Clearly and it's so obvious this comment about what I'm going to say, but one needs to think about it. When you have a greenfield site, it is obviously a greenfield site, which means there is nothing there, which means that the all-important category of works, which we refer to in the industry as the enabling works, really makes up the opportunity for to provide delivery of facilities across the park. We again have been so fortunate to be able to deliver this with the support of a local enterprise partnership. As it happens, we also use Reedy Construction for that bit of work. In the meantime, by doing that, they created in the region of 162 jobs. And the business park, as you can see from that drone image, is very much open for business, open for delivery of units, open for opportunities. It is all set, utilitied up, enabled, water attenuation strategies. What better platform could you have for regeneration and growing back, building back better? Could keep going if we may. What we're going to do there. This is the much marketed master plan. The focus of what we are looking at is a business space, industrial themed, but not distribution at this stage, delivery of warehouse facilities, not losing sight of reserving some opportunities for office occupiers, office operators, should the market bring forward such a requirement, which is not readily out there at the moment. And this is all built around SBC's really exciting launchpad opportunity, which Emma will be talking more about shortly. We could keep going if we may. That is exactly the same master plan, but brought forward in a CGI image. Clearly at the bottom of the screen, bottom left is the IPECO units. What we're looking at and what we're seeking to deliver is a green, sustainable, low site density business park, delivering economic jobs, opportunities, regeneration around the back of London Southend Airport for what is a really exciting opportunity. And we are making some progress, and so if we can keep going. Anchored around the launch pad, to which over to Emma.
Thanks, Harry. So the Launchpad is a long-held ambition for the Airport Business Park, intended as that centre for innovation, for small business growth, and being part of an overall ecosystem for the site, hopefully creating those opportunities for some of those occupiers to move on into other units that offer them bigger opportunities as they grow. So the build is funded by CELEP and the council, and delivery being led by the council. We appointed Morgan Sindel earlier in the year to take forward the build. They're now on site with a view to completing that build and handing over to the operator next spring. So the building itself, 3-storey build with a central atrium, 2 halves, mix of workshops, seminar space, cafe on the ground floor, and then across first and second floor, mix of small offices and open plan space, which can then be subdivided. Some important points to note about the design and how it will be built and operated. We are working to well building principles, so really thinking about health and well-being of occupiers, users in the future, and really mindful of how people are thinking differently about the space that they work in after the last 15 months. That includes pandemic resilient measures and kind of thinking about the space, the flow, and how the building works. We're also looking at it meeting a BREEAM minimum rating of excellence, so in thinking about those environmental and climate change qualities. So that will include some good cycling facilities, PV panels on the roof, some electric charging points, among others. So we're about to launch procurement for an operator, so that will run over the summer, and we'll hopefully see an organisation in place in the autumn, so that we're giving a sort of 6 to 8 months mobilisation time before the building is activated.
And then this to present to you the quad, which is a 12-unit scheme focusing on the SME sector of the market. So many times as we, with our colleagues, with our marketing colleagues, agency colleagues, some of whom are on this call, have approached the market, and we've been the list of 5,000, 6,000 7,000 square foot operators wanting space, wanting to come to the business park, wanting modern real estate opportunities for their growing business became ever present. We, HBD, decided that we want to bring forward what we refer to as a speculative construction. 12 units, 75,000 square foot in total. There is good interest in this at the moment. Units of the 12 units, 3 are reserved. There's active discussions in the other 9. The biggest challenge we have at the moment, and this is all part of the fun of being a developer, is wrestling with construction costs. In that I report to this meeting that if you ordered steel now, if you can get hold of it, you would not get it on site for another 8 months, such as the shortage of raw materials across the country. And I would be interested in how Swan are getting on with that and their construction inputs into it. The moment we have this bolted, the construction price bolted down, we will be proceeding with this development. We are offering it on a freehold and leasehold basis, and if anyone on this call is interested, do please give our agents a call. If I can just keep moving on. For any motorists on Cherry Orchard Way, you would have seen activity at the entrance to the site, and this is bringing forward a Costa Coffee drive-through facility. This is an innovative approach done in partnership with SBC, who will continue to own the asset in the long term. And this is the business park partnership working to bring forward opportunities, economic recovery, and most importantly, A3, or as we heard earlier now, Class E stuff for the occupiers and operators on the park as we continue to build that up. Costa will be finished in July. Costa's fit out teams then come to town, get fitting out, and we would expect to be up and running in late autumn. If we can keep moving on. This is really my penultimate slide. You will see another aerial image. You will see in the right hand side of the image the Costa construction underway. You will see the launch pad construction underway. You will see a site which is ready, enabled, good to go, which means that we are now having some really significant and exciting conversations with operators, both wanting their own bespoke units, 1 or 2 of whom are on this call. Of that basket of operators wanting to come to town, at least 2 or 3 are coming into Southend, which is really exciting for us and is what success looks like, without losing sight of the fact that there are in Southend some occupiers, partners, clients who are looking to upskill, upsize, improve their real estate offering, and the business park provides that opportunity. If you take those combined with our quad, we're going to be looking like 22, 23 will have significant construction activity across the site coming off the back of the launch pad and indeed the Costa Coffee unit. So without final adjourn to the final slide, by all means happy to take any questions. You will see our agents who we are working with on the project, and that is the business park update concluded.
Great, Harry and Emma, thank you ever so much. There's a lot of potential there, and it's good to see that incremental steps have continued to be made, and certainly look forward to those more imminent ones happening. There are some comments in the chat which I think, and it's good to see a names Lawrence. Good to see your name again, and also Caroline as well. So I think Emma's picked up regarding Lawrence, Harry. So, and I'll leave you to do so if that's appropriate as well. But can I just say to everybody, in the absence of any further questions and running over a bit, and everybody's done exceptionally well, we were quite ambitious, just to say a big thank you to everybody involved this morning, and very much appreciation to our presenters. I'll give a visual clap on that. And also for everybody else attending. We look forward hopefully to a face-to-face meeting sometime in the future, but there's no promises on that. But as I say, September it could happen, but we'll stay in touch. And please, follow up from this meeting and pass on the information you've gained to other people, because it is all about networking and using supply chains in more senses than one. But thank you, everybody, and I wish you a good day. Cheerio.